My name is Anastasios Boudouvas, and I go by Tasso. I was born in New York. I grew up in Flushing, Queens, with my mother, also seeing my dad in Astoria once a week. And I'm currently at New York University pursuing a Bachelor of Arts in Mathematics and a minor in Psychology. I went to a normal day school, normal public elementary, middle, and high school. And during elementary school, for 5 years, I went to Greek afternoon school twice a week, 2 hours each time. Um, and the primary goal of that was to learn the language. We also participated in Greek events such as the Independence Day Parade. We had little plays and performances embracing Orchide and all the basic Greek celebrations. So I did that for 5 years. I live with my mom and my grandmother. With mom, I spoke primarily English. With my grandmother, it was sort of 50-50 between Greek and English. And I used to joke with my mother that we would speak Greek most often when we were angry or nervous towards each other. That is when the Greek would really go out for the emphasis of the feeling. I didn't have many Greek friends growing up, so I spoke primarily English with people. Um, and with the few Greek friends I did have, we also basically would speak English. I have been visiting Greece every summer since I was about 7 years old, with the exception of the past 2 summers, I believe. Um, and I would go with my dad for about 2 months, and we would go to his little town, Garaliani, which is near Kalamata, Peloponnneso, and it would always be great. It was just a very small mountain town that Spiro Agnew's family is from, so it was an interesting experience. And then occasionally I would go for like a week or so to see my mom's family in Scala Laconia, and that would also be a fantastic experience with the beach. And then the last 2 times I actually went by myself, and for the first time I stayed in Athens for about 3 weeks, hanging with my cousin and her friends who are all about my age. So that was a very different experience, and I really enjoyed it. When I was younger, Greece to me was basically a vacation. It was I get to go to the beach, I get to have great food and not care about it, see family that I don't get to see otherwise. Um, in my very younger years, I did not really love speaking Greek because I struggled with it and I didn't like the struggle, so I tried to avoid it, but I kept trying to actually speak because I made the effort. And then my later years, I actually kept getting compliments in from my family in Greece about my Greek, so I got more confidence about it, and then I spoke it some more. And the last 2 times I went by myself, when I came back, my father picked me up from the airport, and for the first few days, I could only speak in Greek. It was my go-to language. I was not speaking in English. Even if someone American spoke to me, I would speak in Greek, and I'd be like, "Oh wait, I have to actually translate now for the first time." It's very interesting because I want to go to Greece not in the summer to see how different it is. Because to me, going to Greece, other than the family, other than just immersing yourself amongst people who are like you in some way, who have a certain similarity to you that you can't sort of escape, that it's just always going to be there. Um, so there's certain associations that I've always made that I'd be interested to see how different they are during the year. It's a little difficult for me in college to do that, but I hope to at some point because um, I'm not fully sure, to be honest. There, there's a lot I'm still wondering about. We sort of see and hear a lot here about what's going on in Greece, which has been um, manipulated somewhat and gone through certain channels of deciding what they do show, what they don't show. So I do feel a bit disconnected when I'm not there. when I'm there, I feel more connected, except for those brief moments where like someone will just say something, I'll just be like, I have no idea where this is going, or they'll call me the little American Nike and just point that out. I am part of the NYU Greek Club, the Hellenic Heritage Association, technically. And I was part of the Greek Club in high school as well. Um, Outside of school, not so much. I think partially because I grew up in Flushing and not in Astoria with my dad, I was not surrounded by that many Greeks. In school, there were barely any Greek kids by chance. So I didn't always have that push around me of a lot of people joining it. In more recent years, I've been sort of wanting to a little more. But for me personally, it seems like more of a struggle when you weren't there at the beginning because it's, people have been doing like Goya or whatever for all these years. They sort of into it and they know how everything runs. And then I'm sort of the outsider trying to sneak in. But I would do things like the Greek Independence Day parade whenever I could, usually with Greek school, with my little Tolya uniform, where I would show my American friends and they would say, "Why are you wearing a dress? Why is that a thing?" Um, but yeah, I embraced it after a while. But so yeah, so we're planning on marching in the parade this year as well with the Greek club. Um, Other than that, it's mostly I go to my dad's restaurant and listen to Greek music and celebrate in that way, in not a very formal way, I suppose. But I do embrace the culture and try to participate it in whatever way I can. Yeah, it's always fun when I make friends because I introduce myself as Tasso, and they say, "What?" They have no idea what I've just said. And sometimes I say it with a Greek accent, so they don't know if it starts with a D or a T or a P sometimes. And then I explain to them, "Oh, it's short for Anastasios," and then they're just like, What is that?" I was like, it's Anastasia, but male. That's all it is." So and they get that. So they're very knowledgeable about my Greek name and my Greek culture, and I do embrace it. Most of my closest friends that I see on a daily basis are not Greek, so they're really aware of it. Um, I do have some Greek friends who I don't see as much because they're away at other colleges, um, and with them too, they know about it, of course, but they don't um, notice it as much, I think, because it just becomes second nature now, where we can be having a conversation and then all of a sudden I'll say something in Greek, either like a little idiom or something, and then they'll just respond, and then before we know it, we've moved on to a Greek conversation. So for them, it's less noticeable, I think. And then some of the struggle with my non-Greek friends is sometimes I want to say some things and I realize, oh wait, I can't because they won't know what I'm saying. I'm gonna have to like explain it. So sometimes I teach them little sayings, good and bad. I will admit. Um, but yeah, I have not personally faced any discrimination, um, especially before the big economic crisis. I would flaunt the Greekness. Being a math person as well, I always talk about how like the Greeks did so much with math, and I was so proud. I was like, it's in my blood. It was meant to be. And then with the economic crisis, most people have not mentioned it to me. Like occasionally, I've been in a class. I was taking an economics class in high school, and the teacher basically was made a little jab at Greece or like whatever, and then turned to me expecting me to know all the information about it. And I was just like, I'm not really familiar with what's going on. Economics is also not my strongest point, as much as math is. Um, but I wouldn't say discrimination at all. I don't have Greek symbols in my room per se. I mean, I do have a Greek soccer jersey from the Greek national team. But what I do have is a key chain that my father gave me. So one side used to be Olympiacos, and then the other side is Little Hellas. It's a little discolored, but that's where it is. So I carry that around. And I used to have the Paterimon prayer in my wallet for the evil eye because someone gave that to me. So in case, I had to empty it out at some point, but I had that there. So those are pretty much the Greek symbols I have. I don't cook. I don't cook at all. So, um, and I do eat Greek food. I eat a lot of meat. That's basically meat and feta and bread, and I'm happy. Um, I'm a picky eater. Coffee too. Yes, I love my frappe, metrio, megala. But yeah, so I usually will get keftedaikya, some arnaiki, some feta, some patatas tiranitas, patatas lemonates, which my yaya makes, and they're delicious, just with some bread, and it's really good. Um, but yeah, so I don't eat like seafood and stuff, which is very Greek in itself. Um, but yeah, and I love to go to Greek restaurants, especially with non-Greek friends, because then I sort of flaunt that, oh, I can actually order this in Greek, and usually the waiter or the owner or someone will be Greek, and they'll be like, hey, and put me at the best table and do all these great things, and that is that feeling of like, again, you have that connection with someone immediately, and they respect it and they want to foster it and make it even stronger. I do embrace my Greekness very much, for good and for bad. So the good would be like I listen to some Greek music, not all of it. I'm not, on the hippest happenings in Greece. Um, Mostly like Zebekika and stuff that my dad sort of got me onto. And then I dance a little Zebekiko too, so it puts me in the mood. And um, I also embrace like some jokes about Greek. So in my modern Greek language class that I'm taking at NYU, we were talking about the Olympics at some point in 2004, and my teacher mentioned that there was some cartoon at some point of people working to get everything ready, and they're like, are the Olympics in the morning or in the afternoon? And then someone says the afternoon, so I was like, oh, okay, we have time. We're good, we have. So like that's not necessarily the best attitude of Greek, but like I embrace it too, because it is true. Like I'm always late for things, I'm always doing things last minute, I'm a big procrastinator, but I do find some joy and some humor in that as well. It's very interesting because so my dad's family had moved to California first in the late 60s. So he was about 10, um, because basically one of his aunts had married a Greek from California who had gone to Greece. And then so the whole family moved over. And then my paputaso left California because he was worried that there was not a strong enough Greek community there, and he was worried that his kids would lose their Greek language, lose their Greek culture, although they had all been born in Greece, and most of them, had grown up at least like 5 years, 6 years in Greece. So he was really worried, so he moved to New York. Um, and then my mom's family, my grandparents on that side went to Halifax first, and then my mom was born there, and then they moved to New York, for mostly economic reasons. But the interesting thing is, my mother is somewhat more Americanized than my father is. So my mother's more understanding, more like, you don't have to be like your dad and, straight off the boat Greek. And my dad's more like, you don't have to, but it would be good if you are. Like, you should marry a Greek girl because, you can marry a non-Greek, but then if you're both Greek, you both can pass on the Greekness. If you're half one and, half the other, then it's going to be like, what's your kid going to do? They're going to be confused. They're not going to know what to do. It's going to be horrible for them. So, that sort of slight guilt trip approach. Um, but so things like Greek school, I think is a pretty common experience among Greek Americans because it's parents saying, go to school, learn the language, you're going to meet other kids like you, and then maybe you'll foster a community and you will carry on this Greek American notion. Um, and it's really interesting that everyone has this thing in common. Everyone usually tends to hate it during the experience. They're just like, do I have to go? Is this really what I need to do? Um, and then what I have found in my personal experience, of myself and of others I know, is that they appreciate it more in the later years. because it is, again, that sort of idea that a foundation is built early on and it's carried through and you carry on with it. And that's the thing. The thing is to try to instill it as early as possible so that you don't have a more like a regret later that you didn't try to. I have not really looked or heard about any specific internship or scholarship opportunities. Um, if there were one, I would consider it. And I would enjoy it again because there would also possibly be that experience of going in a non-summer or going for a non-vacation reason and sort of getting a feel of Greece in the way that I've wanted to. I've always considered myself a New York boy. I studied abroad in London for a semester last semester, and I enjoyed it, but I realized how much I love my New York. So I would probably hope to stay in New York, but again, you never know. There are people who go abroad somewhere for the first time and say, you know what, this is a completely different experience,
And
and
your
would want to stay
father
there.
or his friends, they think retiring in Greece, or they think you're going to stay here?
Um, my dad, I think, would stay here, mostly because so much of our immediate family is here. We have, he has like first cousins in Greece and stuff, but the immediate family is here. We had a bit of a conflict. My papu Tasso died my freshman year of high school, of college, sorry. And there was a big issue of, are we going to bury him here? Or are we going to take him to Greece? And it was a huge thing because, you know, he might have wanted to be in Greece because he grew up there. He has his Elias there. He probably would like to be there with with a lot of his family. At the same time, if we put him there, we would not be able to visit him as often. So it was a huge conflict. In the end, we kept him here. But I feel like my father would have a similar conflict in terms of retiring, where he built most of his life here. His businesses, um, his relations are mostly here because he left so early. He left Greece when he was about 10 to 12, something like that. Well, lately I've been becoming more involved with the Greek club here. And the good thing about that is that it's mostly Greeks. We have a couple of non-Greeks who come to and just appreciate the culture. So I'm hoping through there to make stronger connections because a few of them, especially, I know, like they're from Bayside, and Bayside is also a very big Greek community where it seems everyone also seems to know each other. So to make those connections now is important in a way because then you establish, another connection to someone else, and for all I know, it's to someone who my family knows their family and they've, done certain things together and I had no idea. So it's very interesting that way. So I would like to, because I love my American friends. I don't want to like paint a different picture with that, but it is sometimes nice to have someone nearby who automatically again understands you in a certain way. Because there are certain things that I think all Greeks have in common. Whether it's the forcing to go to Greek school, whether it's just the love of food, whether it's a whole list of things. There are just certain things in common that you can then jump off on and then create an even stronger relationship. Διαβάζω σιγά σιγά, όχι και πολύ γρήγορα. Δεν κοιτάω εγώ τα νέα, η γιαγιά κοιτάει τα νέα. Και όλο ακούω να λέει «Αχ, πάλι ξακώνονται εδώ και φωνάζουν, whatever». She's always complaining that, everyone's yelling at the same time and you can't hear anybody. Like you could literally just be going blah, 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 and no one would know because you can't hear. So, and basically, μιλάω στο Facebook με συγγενείς στην Ελλάδα και μου λένε τι γίνεται, whatever. And basically, the impression I get is that the media makes things seem bigger and more drastic and dramatic than they are. Έχω μια θεία που μένει στο Περιστέρι και κάποτε είχαν κάτι strike εκεί and the news was showing like φωτιές and blah 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 and all these things and she was like δεν ήταν και τίποτα, like φώναζαν λίγο αλλά Τι περιμένεις, you know. Έλληνες είναι, μου είπε, basically. Um, so, yeah, so I don't keep that much in touch, to be completely honest, but I get my grandmother like the Greek news on the weekend whenever I go to a diner. It's like it's just always there, so I get her. Μου διαβάζει τα ανέκδοτα, and we just laugh about those. Yeah, and it's good. I'm still very hopeful. There are certain people who are not so much, and who try to tell me, listen, you know, it's a big problem. You know, some people will be like, you know how Greeks are, and I'll be like, I think they can get through it. There, some harsh changes need to be made. And sure, you're not gonna appreciate like going on your vacations to whatever Nisi you want to go whenever you want to go because you can't afford it. Okay, because I remember that would always be the thing. Like, oh yeah, we went to this Nisi now because everything's close by, but slowly things add up. Um, I I was not a big fan of the like conversion from the drachma to the euro. I was not expecting that per se to be the best thing for Greece, and whether that would have really helped at all, whether if staying with the drachma would have been good, or whether in the end we would have still faced some huge financial crisis because of certain underlying problems with the political leaders and all that, is another question and another debate to have. Um, but I do I do think that we should support our fellow Greeks, because as far as I believe, most of us have family that are still in Greece who we probably keep in touch with. Like, I'm not talking about like people you've never met who just happen to be related, but first cousins, second cousins, aunts, uncles, who you care about and you want to support. And even if that's just a moral support, that's something, because um, it's just like, I think it's the Greek way. I think we talk about um, being hospitable to people, and like it's a big deal. Someone comes to your house, you offer them all the food you have, you offer whatever you have because you want to make them feel at home. And that's true even with non-Greeks sometimes. I've brought a bunch of my friends to like my dad's restaurant, and he always treats them like he would if I had brought in a Greek person, because it's more about being nice and being a good human being to someone else. And I think those are the sort of values that Greeks really believe in, and that all this bad stuff has sort of clouded that and made people forget that. Whether it's the media's fault, whether it's just people seeing what they want to see and not what they don't. Um, Again, huge debates, but I am confident it might be a long process. It probably will be if we're going to be completely serious, but I have hope, and that's all you can really do.